Okay, so we are on to a new cat now, our last cat of the series. We're going to do cougars, or mountain lions, or pumas, or whatever you want to call them. They've got so many different names. They're North America's big cat, and I had to throw something in there from North America, considering I live in North America and I love cougars. But what I thought I would do on this, on these last two videos, leading up to this point, we've covered, working from the inside out. I really wanted you guys to learn that structure. What is that, the cat anatomy? What is it about the bone structure, the musculature that makes up a big cat? And so now that we're in our fifth cat now, I thought I'd change it up a little bit. Now that you've got that knowledge bouncing around in your brain, I thought, you know what, why don't we start drawing these cats the way that I actually draw them? I don't actually sit down and draw the bone structure, then draw the muscles, then draw the cat. I have all that in my head, like hopefully you do now, and I just start like anybody else would, working on the outside, but with the knowledge of what's inside. So let's go ahead and start with a cougar. Let's start with the heads, like we have been. I like to start with the heads first, and then we work into the bodies. The last video will be on the bodies. So, I would start with this round shape. And normally then I'd find that flow, okay? So that's what I'm trying to do here is find that central flow. So here, it would come down, and I know that if this is a scapula, I know there's a scapula there. They have a pretty good sized neck. Cougars have small heads like cheetahs do. Not quite as small, but compared to the rest of the body, they have a small head. Their body is a little bit more heavily built than a cheetah. They don't have that burst of speed. They're built for the mountains, rugged terrain, that sort of thing. They're very, very strong. As a matter of fact, they can jump higher than any other cat as far as compared to their size, pound for pound. But let's going into this head. So I know that the head comes down. I'm drawing this circle. That next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to find that center line. Let's do them kind of looking 3/4. Looking over here like this. Well, just above, if this is halfway, I would say just above the halfway mark, that's going to be my eye line. And those eyes are going to be about 1.5 eyes to 2 eyes apart. So I usually draw this kind of shape like this to indicate where those eyes are going to go. And now we know that, the cats have very strong cheekbones. Cougars, in particular, have very strong cheekbones. So here, you've got this circle that's going to indicate the jawline. Well, right in here, knowing that skull is underneath, you got cheekbones that come down here, and then the cheekbones that come down right in there. And this almost makes like another little circle within the big circle. Okay? So these cheekbones push that skin up, and it comes down like so. And you've almost got it's kind of graphic, but you've almost got this arrow. It almost looks like an arrow, drawing those eyes. Think about that, especially when you're drawing it in 3/4. You definitely get this here. It's like an arrow shape, okay? And the eye gets set right back in there like so. You get these little brows. Brow comes out. There's a bigger brow up there. But let's go in, follow the center line down. There's the bridge of the nose right there. And let's continue that bridge out. Okay? Now their face tends to be, their muzzle tends to be a little bit shorter. And we know coming down, after looking at the skulls, we know that break, that nasal opening is right about there, so there's going to be a break where we'll come down into the nose. Remember that we've talked about the flying bird shape to that nose. I actually made it. I'm going to erase that back because I feel like I've made it too long. So it's going to come down. . Come right into here. There we go. That feels better. And get that nose. Remember that flying bird. You know, if you look at it straight on, you get that shape from a 3/4. It looks like this. All right. Now these cheeks come down and kind of dip underneath. Okay. Like so. This comes down. Now they tend to have, I'm going to erase this back, that dark line is distracting. They have this dark, you know, like a cheetah has this marking that comes down like so. Well, cougars, right in the same area down on the bottom, they have this dark marking. Like so. And then they have their darker muzzle, you know, whisker markings that come in like that. And then the chin comes under. And then back. Remember, this is hollow underneath. And then this kind of comes back. Let's darken this. Darken that eye up. Now we know if the shoulder blade's here, that connects right into that. There's the shoulder coming forward there. So on the other side, it's going to be in the same place, right? Let's get the ear. So there's a break here, and that comes right down into this comes right down into that jawline. And they tend to be very furry. Like this will be, you know, especially depending on the time of year. This will be broken up fur. Okay, so there's your cartilage, your muzzle shape right here. That comes up. And then the other ear. And fur. This will be opening in here. And all of this is fur coming around. I'm going to put that shadow over the eye. I always like to, you know, with the heavy brow, I like to have those shadows over the eye. And that comes back. So, you know, really, you haven't learned from an anatomy standpoint. I didn't show you anything different than I've shown you in the other videos. They, you know, we already know about the nasal opening. We know about the skulls, you know, how the skull works underneath. We know all of that already, right? So now it's just a matter of putting it to work for a cougar. And so, you know, keeping in mind that muzzle's got to be short. Matter of fact, I'm going to pull this over. I want to reiterate this point. Here's my lion skull. So here's our other, you know, our opposite end of the spectrum right here. Look at the size of this guy. So, you know, we've got this big, I can put my head right in there. This big guy. Look how long that muzzle is. Lions have much longer muzzles, okay? And so as you get into those smaller cats, you get into the, you know, the cheetahs and the cougars, those muzzles tend to get a little bit shorter, okay? Look at that. Just massive, massive, massive. The size of those teeth are probably 3 times the size as what a cougar would have. So keep that in mind when you're working. Those, you know, those faces, just like a cheetah, tend to be flatter and you know, a little and shorter. The other thing too is, remember, you know, you got that teardrop shape right above the eye on the other cats. Well, you got it on cougars as well. Then you got that white underneath, and then there's a white area there. So if I show you where the dark markings are, it's kind of in here. It's dark along the top of the nose, And it feeds right into that dark marking along there. But then you got, there, I shouldn't have colored that. It's light there, light under the eye. It's light above the eye, just like on the other cats. Even, like I keep reiterating how similar the markings are from cat to cat in the little details. Even in the, right all the way down to your house cat a lot of times. And then it just kind of fades out into a light color underneath, like so. Okay. You would have this nice light area here, area there. There we go. And we'll get a little bit of light in this area up in here. This is all definitely lighter underneath the cat. So you have, so that's what, that's the structure, the construction of a cougar. Now I've gone ahead and prepared some other drawings I want to show you. So one of the things I wanted to show you here was, I've got these cats. I've also used some of my fur brushes to add some of the texture. I make these different Photoshop brushes, and one of them just paints on fur. And so I was experimenting with these drawings and just very lightly indicated some fur, which is kind of cool. Gave it a nice texture. But one of the things I wanted to indicate on here, just to review a little bit. We went over, I drew this guy over here, just, talking through it. And you can see, this is what we've got. We've got a cougar there. And so here, with the more rendered cat, I want to go over some of what's happening underneath. So what I've done is I've prepared just a little bit, a few skulls, so you can see, once again, so we can review what's happening underneath. So if I start to lighten up these guys, look at this, they magically disappear into all these skulls. So first of all, once again, look at how short-faced those skulls are. I'm gonna jump back to my lion skull again. I really, this is a key element in getting when you're drawing the cat to make it look right. Look how long that face is right there. Okay, look at the length, and now look at those skulls right there. First of all, the skulls are quite a bit smaller, but they're also much shorter. Okay, so as I lighten this back up, you can see, look at the cheekbones especially. As I lighten this back up, look at the cheekbones and how they manifest themselves into the cat. Look how pronounced they are on the outside, what you see on the outside. Look at especially this rear 3/4 up in the upper right. Look at that, how pronounced that is, that big round shape. And when I bring the skulls back up, you can see, okay, that's what causes that big round shape, is that big cheekbone that sticks out there. Look at how prominent they are. And also look at the breaks in the nose. If you look at where where the opening to the nasal cavity happens, well, then you're going to see when the cats come back up, you're going to see that that's right where those breaks are, right on those noses. All right, so keep that in mind. Look at right along here, especially on the lower right. You can really see, the way I handle the lighting, you can see where the cartilage comes in. As I lighten that, bring that skull back up, bingo, right there. There's that's where the cartilage sits, right on top of that nasal opening. Okay? So, coming back to this guy over here, when you're drawing, keep it simple. Start with those circles. Use the construction methods that I showed you, with the eye line being just above halfway and that sort of thing. And then once you get that, you get that handled, you get that under control, then you can start moving it around in space. Okay, you can start having it look down, look up. Also these images are going to be included in the all the bonus material that you've gotten with this series. And so try doing this. Look at what we did on this first drawing right here, and now do that over these drawings here. Break them down, and you'll start to understand how to construct them. I've got one more set that I want to go over, and here I've got photographs. Now these are some of my own photos that I've shot of captive cougars. And there's a couple of things I want to go over. I want to go over, first of all, how different they can look from cat to cat. They're just like us. No two cats are alike. They all have different personalities, different looks, just like everybody else. Now, there are things that make a cougar, and you want to make sure you hit those, but there's variances within. You can have, smaller cheekbones, more pronounced cheekbones, that sort of thing. But I'm just going to go ahead and show you two right off the bat. Here's one. He's a very typical looking cougar. But if I, look at him and now look at this guy, there's a different cat altogether. But look at those cheekbones. Look how much they're pushed and pronounced, pushing right up, into that, how flat-faced he is. Those two, look at the difference between those two. And this one has a much more slight snout. The other one has a heavier snout. And these just happen to both be male cats as well. Okay? So these are things to keep in mind, but they both have the dark marking along the muzzle. The nose is light in color. You've got the same coloration along the top of the body, although that can vary as well, going into the lightness underneath the chin and into the belly. But if I turn these back, on and off, you can see those similarities. But really, those proportions can vary quite a bit. All right? Now, one more thing I want to do is just like we did on this guy, where I drew the circle and constructed him. I want to do the same thing over the photograph, just so you can see that this is a real cat, and yet we can do the same. We can do that construction and work it out and get it to look like a real cat. So that first thing that I'm going to do is start with that circle, like this. So that circle's here. Just going to fill them out. And usually I think of that circle as being where the ear line's going to be. Okay, so there's that rough circle. We find that center line coming down. He's very, very 3/4 right now. He's also looking up. So we're getting just a little bit of the underside. So that eye line's going to come around just slightly like that. So it's well above halfway. Okay. Now we know we're going to have a brow that comes down in here, and a brow that comes up and around like so. Now I'm going to blow this up. Because of those cheekbones, we know those cheekbones are under there, so they're pushing that part of the eye up. And then this comes up and comes down, and get the same thing there. And the eye sits back inside. So what do we have? We've got an arrow again, okay? Remember your arrow. We know this comes down, this S, reverse S shape. So let's go into the muzzle. So there's the break in the nose, right at the eye line. And we know that the nasal opening is right there. So that's going to come down. I'll make my brush a little smaller. Our flying bird shape. All of this is exactly the same that we went over when we were doing the cat out of our head. So that muzzle comes down and it feeds up into here. There's a break, and then it comes back like so. Now the other thing I want to reiterate is, remember, I'm always trying to find that fluidity. Well, there's this nice fluid shape here. So this comes back right into the muscle, into the back of the head. Look at that nice shape. All of this. And then we've got this shape here. With the scapula there. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring the ears forward because, we've drawn the ears so much on other cats, we can do that. So I'm going to draw a little bit of fur coming forward here, and that if you brought that if you brought that ear up and come around like so, there'd be a little break in there, and I'd feed right into this area right here. You'd see the back of the ear, and then broken up fur like so. And then this other ear would sit right about here. Thinking about perspective, our perspective is going this way, so let's make sure we keep it the same way in our ears. So I want to bring that ear just up a little higher. So the reason I want to do this, and where I'm changing it up from the photo, is, once you know that anatomy, you can do whatever you want. You can start with reference images, like we're doing here. But if you don't like what's going on in that reference image, change it. Do not be a slave to your reference images. That's one of the biggest things I see wrong with young artists that are, that use, especially wildlife artists that use reference images. They just copy what's in the photo. When you have that knowledge, when you know what's underneath, you have that intimate knowledge of how to draw that character, that creature, then you can move it around. You can change it up. You can do whatever you want with it. And that's the goal, ultimately. You want to have that knowledge, okay? So if I turn this guy off, you can see there's that teardrop shape. And then the darkness, that dark marking for the muzzle comes in right there. But look, that's not so drastically different than what we drew over here just out of our heads, because we know the construction, we know what's happening underneath, we know the markings. That's the key, that's the secret. And the big thing is, get out there and find them in the zoos, find them on television, find them in magazines, study them, look at their anatomy. And, I'm trying to provide you here with as much as I possibly can, but there's so much more out there. So anyway, that's drawing the heads. Why don't we move on to the last video? I'm going to show you a very quick video on drawing cougars' bodies, kind of in the same vein that we've done here, and then that'll be it. So anyway, let's move on.